So they're not precise shooters, but they're cyborgs.
Yeah.
Yes, they do have cyborg body parts.
Right. I mean, we talked about children in general.
This is true. Well, this is true.
Then how are we dealing with, at some point, it's just easier to use adults.
Oh no, it's definitely easier, but it's about sending a message, and the message is you do not care about human life.
This is true, and the thing that makes it even, in this anime that makes it worse is, like, it's run by government. It's not like it's some gang or mafia. Like, no, this is run by the government, approved by the government. You know, and they do show that. That was all really good points. They do show how, like, interaction with other people outside their handlers or their other assassins, like, affects the way that they think. You know, they do show that, like, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler. I know I'm, like, yelling at you guys because I never use a microphone. Is, like, when they get damaged, if they get shot or anything, they have to replace those cyborg parts, which means they have to be reconditioned, which makes them forget even more. And that is, like, foreshadowed that eventually they won't be able to use them at all. Like, they will no longer be able to, they'll pretty much have to kill them off. So, I mean, but that is actually really good, both sides. Like, that was amazing. But as a real-world application, this is pretty much the equivalent to child soldiers, which is something that people don't really talk a lot about. It is an actual problem. I mean, I know a lot of people mostly see it in Africa, but, so yeah, I like doing real-world applications in case people have a thought on that too. Like, you're more than, yes?
I was going to say, you also bring up a good point about how they're children soldiers, but there were actually a lot of children used in Vietnam. When you said they're disposable, they were actually tied to trees and used as, like, empathy bombs.
Yeah, that's like, it's horrible, but it works very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like, I want you guys to question, like, morals, ethics. Like, that's what I want you guys to do while we're here. Like, that's, you know. So, is it really saving these girls?
No.
I mean, you know, would death be better? Yes.
I think it was interesting. I've never seen this show, but you said that when they train them, they forget their abuse. Mm-hmm. But killing people, like, that's kind of like traumatic too. So they're being like almost re-abused because they're being traumatized every time they have to go kill someone. They
never do specify whether or not they recondition, honestly, afterward, unless they have been injured. So, yes.
But is killing somebody really traumatic if you don't have the moral code in place saying that killing people is bad? I mean, there have been plenty of cultures where killing somebody is just something you do.
That is also true, and it's noteworthy that more often than not, these girls are fighting domestic terrorism, which doesn't really make it any better. But it's not like they're going out for personal gain. You know, for governmental personal gain, they're just trying to protect Italy, where it's set. It's set in Italy. Okay, that's terrorism. Yep.
And what's the difference between a child soldier and sending your kid off, selling them off because you don't have enough food to feed them, or putting them in a factory to work, you know, all day long without any education?
I mean, ultimately, there's no true difference. Like, kids, it sucks for kids to be stuck in that kind of situation because kids don't have a say, oftentimes, in society. It's, you know, you listen to the adults, and kids have to trust adults, and not all adults are trustworthy, obviously. I mean, and that's tough. And it's hard to take steps to fight against it, and especially when people aren't aware of it, which is something that, you know, and how do you raise awareness when people are always stuck, you know, one-track mind, paying attention to things that they shouldn't, you know, like, they're stuck on Instagram all the time, looking at their models, but they don't ever see what's actually going on, you know, so it's something that we have to actively think about and pay attention to. The next one, I believe everybody is familiar with. If you're not, how uncultured can you be? But no, I mean, I still have a summary here anyways, because that's awesome. So, My Hero Academia. basically 80% of the world's population has some kind of superpower in this anime, or a quirk as they call it. Izuku Midoriya is born without one, but fate intervenes, and all of a sudden he's telling you about how he's the world's greatest hero. And it's set in Japan. And we start off with bullying. It seems to go unnoticed or ignored by adults. Izuku is a prime example of this. And my question to you is, do you suppose that this is because of the appearance of quirks?
No.
Nah, children are bastards.
Yes.
I'd actually say this is identical to the child soldiers in the last slide. And it's the same with Naruto, too, because you think about these kids, and they're, like, growing up, and they're going to go to whatever hero school there is, but, like, logistically, what jobs are they ever presented with in the show? It's all fighting people. It's all, fighting the villains, or really being, a soldier. And I'd say that they don't talk about it the same way, but if you think about shows like this, they're very much more like a dystopia of this one, it's, what powers are you born with, and it's some of that nature versus nurture type thing. But it's probably just as dark if you really, peel it back. All these people are just going to grow up to be used by the government to, forward some politician's means. Mm-hmm. What else is there?
Yes.
I mean, I would say that the dividing line in particular between series like My Hero Academia and series like Gunslinger Girl is the intended audience is very different. Gunslinger Girl is aimed at adult men who are watching these children be exploited, and the ones that they are projecting themselves on are more likely to be the handlers. Whereas My Hero Academia is aimed at children. The children are going to be, children naturally want to engage with fantasy, want to engage with specifically with power fantasies. And My Hero Academia, series like My Hero Academia, like Naruto, arguably you can have a discussion about violence in media aimed at children as a separate thing, but I wouldn't say it's talking about it in those terms. Children want to imagine being powerful. Therefore, that's why series like My Hero Academia and Naruto exist, as opposed to Gunslinger Girl, which is watching little girls suffer.
Do you really think that all the people who watch the Gunslinger Girl, they want to be the handler, and they want to watch girls suffer, and it's not more of
I'm not saying all people.
A discussion on, what is free will, and, what is, utilitarianism? Is it worth sacrificing some for the good of many?
I think it can be all of those things, can't it?
Yep,
Yeah.
I think I would say all of the above.
People.
I have a bunch of people raising. Can we start all the way back there? Hi. Because you've been so patient. Thank you.
One difference between My Hero Academia and Gunslinger Girl is My Hero Academia, it's a school that they aspire to and they choose to attend. It's not one that's forced upon them. It's one huge difference. And secondly, in that same regard, the U.S. has that exact same program here in the U.S. and it's called the JRTC program.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually a really, really good point.
Now the question is
one of the things you were talking about, like the bullying and all that, and is the powers. I think the powers in this case is just a more distilled, concentrated version of society. So we get all the same ills and all the same problems. We're just seeing it amplified by powers being added to the equation.
Yeah, that's true too. Yes.
I always thought of My Hero Academia. It's kind of about privilege and race in a lot of ways, because if you're not born with a certain trait, I don't know how much, we want to go into it, or, but
It's actually the thing we discuss next. So you're on your right track. Go ahead.
So, imagine if you're born without a quirk in this world. What kind of job opportunities do you have? What kind of social opportunities do you have? Are people not going to want to marry you because they think their kid will be without a quirk? And then are people not going to hire you? How do the police treat people in that way? All of these questions are really interesting when it comes to that idea. Unfortunately, the main character who doesn't have the quirk, he gets a power before you could even explore that. So
That is fair. Yes.
It's just interesting the parallels between All Might and the United States. Like, he's dressed in the red and white canoe, and all his attacks are like Texas Smash or all the different cities or whatever, what have you. So it's kind of like parallels the real world, how, like, up until now, recently, I guess, a lot of the world looked up to the United States, and that's, like, symbolic of Midoriya's, like, represents Japan. Japan looked up to the United States, and I don't know how that has to do with stuff, but...
I can see how that works. You're right. Like, I mean, to an extent, but that means Midoriya, with him being the world's greatest hero, you know, that can ultimately be symbolic, especially since it's anime. Yes.
I mean, I would say that's more about borrowing the comics aesthetic, because boiling it down to Japan looks up to the United States.
Until recently.
Yeah, up until recently.
It's still heroes a lot.
That's how you look at it.
But
Yeah.
I'd say it's more about its comic book origins.
Yes.
To that point as well, we also see that All Might only looks like that once in a while, and that he's actually sick underneath that as well. So a lot of it is a presentation of what is going on. But also to the bullying point, one of the things why it might not be explored or just completely ignored is if they can't put up with bullying, how are they going to put up with villains? And so that's probably where they're like, solve it yourself, kids.
That could be another good point. It was just he's quirkless, you know, so it's like he really needs a hero, and his hero ends up being a bully. You know? Yes.
I actually kind of want to go back to, I don't remember who, but we talked a little bit on government and what kind of jobs are out there for people without court. It's in the first 1 or 2 episodes, All Might even tells Deku that he could be a cop. To me, this show also shows, to your bullying point, it's an ineffectual government. It's, all of a sudden, the government can't handle anything, so what do? They give the power, or they give policing government facilities to heroes. Cops are only there more like garbage men or collectors. They don't actually have a purpose, and they actually very flat out show that cops are, and the government's a very ineffectual system now, and that they're only holding on because there's a few people willing to take their money to do their job.
Yeah.
And so when you have a system that's flawed like that, power becomes the writing a huge factor. And it's actually an interesting dilemma between All Might and All for One, I think his name is. And it shows that this world doesn't know how to deal with these people with powers, and they're just basically contracting out. And so if someone's getting bullied, well, power rules here. You got to be powerful enough to stop it yourself, because no one's going to help you, because the government can't help you, and the heroes are pretty much in it for themselves in a lot of ways.
True. Yes.
One of the things that always interested me about like this world, and I think it has to do with Japan's level of social trust, is they talk about getting a license to do like hero work, and like how you can't just go out and use your quirk. And I've always tried to like parallel that to America and like our Bill of Rights, and how you can do basically whatever you want. It's your body type thing. And like to me, the quirk like legislation I've always paralleled to gun control, and I thought that was like really curious, because like it makes sense in like the Japanese mindset to say like, oh yeah, if you have overpowered powers, you can't use them and just go out and do it. But in America, would you even need a hero license? Could you just go out and like kick ass, or can you just go out and like use your powers and do whatever you want? Like I don't know, it's just like a weird parallel between the two that I've always seen.
You probably couldn't, though, because if you cause damage, you'd probably get sued.
I mean, yeah.
Or if you interfere with hero work or whatever and all that, as a vigilante, you'll get sued too. It's actually shown in one of the arcs called the, I think it's called the Gentleman arc or whatever. If anybody read the manga, there's this guy who aspired to be a hero, and he called himself Gentleman. He has the power to turn anything bouncy, even air, just turns anything to a trampoline. And then his downfall on not becoming a hero and just becoming a villain is that at a young age he saw someone fall, like jumping off a building and all that, and he like chose to hop into the air and save this guy. Well, guess what? He missed his trampoline, and the guy got injured. And soon after, the Hero Association and the guy who fell down sued him and his family, and soon that down spiral just went down to like his parents hating him. He he was too depressed to even take was it the hero test and all that. So just goes all down to that.
Yeah, and it's great because like as we discussed this, you guys are hitting like all the main points I brought. Yes.
One of the things that came up earlier when we were talking about like race or other privilege, comparing quirks to that. One of the things that I find really interesting in the themes throughout, and full disclosure, I haven't finished it yet. But the things that I've been seeing recently is that different types of quirks are things that are you're a hero, or you'd be a great villain. I'm thinking specifically of one of the characters that was in the school when they had the big tournament.
Shinso.
And they were everybody keeps telling him what a great villain he would make. Nobody can see his potential in any other way. And we also see a lot of other characters that have been mentioned where they tried the hero route, and then due to like something systemic or some kind of social structure, their efforts are in vain, and then they end up turning another way.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the big thing. Like, I love My Hero because there's so many good points you can make and so many ways you can run with it. One big thing that we went ahead and touched on, and I think we keep edging around, is that Izuku says at the very beginning that not all men are created equal, which is later agreed with by Mr. Aizawa in the way that he says that during the fitness exam, that the Japanese government still wants to pretend that everybody is equal. So we kind of skirted on that already. Kind of like lost my spot. Okay, there we go. And we even already touched on my next question. Okay, so because I asked about like what would America be like because of equality? Like we're all for equality. I'm putting quotes around that if you can't see this, because America's supposed to be all about equality. So my thing is like how would America view that for people who aren't quirkless? If you have any points, yes.
I think they deal with it the same way they deal with privilege, with wealth, with other things, which is just saying that is somehow makes them morally better than others. That is the reason that they are successful, because they took themselves up by their $1 million bootstraps and came all the way to the top all by themselves. Like that's the kind of mentality that is indoctrinated in our culture.
Yeah.
So I think they would treat it exactly the same. They would just it would almost become almost like a fate thing, right? Where like that these people, like this line, this family just is better than us because they got these great quirks.
Yeah, I've got everybody raising hands. What? Okay, we'll go with you,
Okay.
and then we'll run with you, and then we'll run with you and you. Okay?
I always think an interesting point of comparison to the way that quirks are handled in My Hero Academia is the next in Tiger and Bunny, because it is a similar sort of world, a similar situation where people are starting to be born with powers. Tiger and Bunny is at the stage where they're more uncommon, but if you have a good superpower, you can go to a hero academy, you can get a TV deal, they'll recruit, like if you have like really cool like lightning powers, they'll recruit you, and you'll be able to make a lot of money through corporate sponsorships because the superheroes are sponsored by corporations. Sometimes you get a good power, sometimes you get a power that sucks, like you can sweat, you can just make yourself sweat a lot on cue. And so I think, but also the main character in Tiger and Bunny, he is kind of careless and destroys property constantly, so he doesn't make a lot of money because his company is constantly having to pay back everyone for all the stuff that he destroyed. And I always think that's sort of an interesting sort of counterpart to My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
A similar examination.
That's a good point. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
I think it's important to distinguish between, like, if you're talking about equality of outcome or equality of opportunity or both, or which one. Because equality, there's two different things, opportunity and outcome.
Just in general, I mean, in all things, equality in all things.
Oh.
Really. Who else did I have? Yes.
I just wanted to speak to that point. I don't think it's a coincidence that All Might, being the representative of America, his powers are being transferred to Deku. I think they did that very specifically with having the underdog and the American dream in mind, and being able to. There's other people with privilege, like there's like the rich guy. There's the people who wanted to like. What's the guy who's like half fire, half ice?
Todoroki.
Yeah,
The guy who has it all.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's like doesn't have anything, and he's like the underdog, and then he has to go to school, and then it's all like based on school and like class, and being the underdog who becomes the all-American dream with all-American power, which is All Might's power.
That's true. I mean, Deku kind of makes that point during the sports festival arc where he's like, we're here for two very different reasons. And I believe the episode is called The Boy Born with Everything, about Todoroki and his point. So, I mean, that is actually a very well-made point. Who else did we have? We had one back here, and then I'll get to you.
Yeah, back to the point about how the United States might treat people with quirks.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like we probably would not put people with quirks in positions of power or treat them as people with wealth or privilege. I feel Americans tend to treat people with differences in a negative connotation, and especially with our current system, people that have perceived power or can threaten the power system that we have, for example, like automation currently, where it's hurting our blue-collar workers and stuff like that, and we fight everything we can to stop automation in some things. I feel like people who are beginning to show quirks might be put away somewhere or pushed down to keep them down or make them feel like they can't do anything.
But these are way, like, even more so in Japan. Like, all of those issues exist in Japan to a greater extent. That's not just an American thing.
Kind of to that point, though, I've never seen the show, but it's my understanding that the quirks were now in the majority. So they wouldn't be compartmentalized because they are the majority. I think that the problem with people with no quirks is a presupposition that they can only do a limited thing, and their horizons are limited because nobody expects much, and they can most likely go through their whole life with nobody really expecting them to do things. And I think that's a problem in real life, is that people tend to see certain groups as not being able to do anything because, that's what they are. And so nobody pushes, nobody expects much, and so you might not live up to potential if you're not being expected to do anything.
That's true, yeah. I mean, they kind of, like, almost in an undertone, like, being called quirkless is almost like a dirty word. Like, we'll go ahead and hit on something else. I love that this is, yes.
Actually, worldwide, currently, people with quirks are looked down on and treated as they're insane. I don't know if people, like, everybody have their own opinions about telepathy, telekinesis, and such. And if someone actually truly has one of those quirks or gifts, they are treated like they're touched or they're crazy for believing they have it.
Yeah, humans put a big thing about, they have a big handle on, believing in things that they can physically see or touch. That's humans. That's what we like. We like to be able to know that it's there. It just depends on if that's your thing, if it's open-minded. I mean, imagine if you believe in it, awesome. If you don't, that's cool too. But if it were to be proven, can you imagine how often people would exploit that? So, because it's not a majority thing, whereas quirks is a majority thing. So it's really the only huge exploitation you get is just becoming a villain. So, one thing is, like, the government does control everything quirk related in the show. Pay, costume regulations, licensing, and even the hero rankings. And so one of my big things, because we really touched on pretty much everything else, was, are hero rankings truly necessary? Because, I mean, we've seen that it can, spark issues like what is between Endeavor and All Might, where All Might's number 1, Endeavor's number 2, and yet, Endeavor's trying to make the perfect hero to surpass him, and he does it in a very sketchy way. So, yes.
I have something to touch upon that. My Hero Academia, how the hero rankings go is that the hero, it's not based off of the hero, but it's also based off of their the company they're with, or their their enterprise or something like that.
Like their agencies?
Yeah, their agencies. Yes, that's the right word. And yeah, their rankings are what affects their rankings is also how successful their agencies are. And you could be a hero who can't level down 2 city blocks with a whip or whatever. You could just be a hero that just looks good and all that. Like that one hero, what's her name? The one with the snake hair and all that.
Uwabami.
Uwabami. I mean, she doesn't. It looks like she doesn't even have any combat capabilities, but she appeals to the public so much that her ranking is pretty much around A class or something like that.
Yeah, she actually is. It turns out she's a rescue hero.
Yeah, but in my opinion, hero rankings would actually be useful in terms of how effective they are in crises. Let's say, was it Class S heroes? In One Punch Man, Class S heroes handle the big boy pants threats or whatever, whatsoever. But in My Hero Academia, it's more about I really don't like how it's about appeal or
popularity.
Popularity.
It's a popularity poll. Yeah. Yes.
You can say the same thing. I mean, perfect example popularity poll is one of the big things we do here in the U.S. about rankings. We rank colleges. And the thing is, when you actually look at how those are ranked, it's arbitrary, backroom dealings, lies. None of it's really that important. The colleges that are ranked higher often don't deserve to be for academic success, more for just to show off, hey, donate more to me because then we can have the people who come out of here will be, you'll look better and we'll look better, everyone looks better. But that's basically what it is. It kind of looks like what the rankings are, just a way to arbitrarily leave people thinking oh, I'd rather go this way than that. Even though in the end, the guy, what's his name, Scar? It's been a while since I've watched the show. The first major villain Deku fights? Stain.
Yeah, the Stain arc.
Thank you. He brought up probably the best point in the show is All Might was the only hero out there that actually did this for selfless reasons. Every other hero, again, goes back to doing it for getting up in the rankings. And so it shows that people, even the heroes, put more emphasis on the idea of everyone sees me as better, even though I'm not better.
That's fair. And All Might, by all technicalities, would be the epitome of a hero. However, the fact, would you consider rankings to be such an important thing to people that, they're willing to go out and risk their lives and save people just for it? Just for the money, just for the rankings? I mean, there's got to be some part of them that still wants to be the epitome of a hero. Yes.
But I mean, ultimately, what are they saving people from? It's villains, right? Basically,
Villains.
just the inverse of heroes. So
Natural disasters. Yeah.
At the end of the day, heroes are just kind of a wash. They just basically fight with each other, and what do they really end up contributing to society? Not a whole lot. So the rankings just seem to, solidify that it's all spectacle. It's basically just, a giant version of the Celebrity Apprentice.
Yes.
Well, then we can also, bring comparisons to, even within our own military, we have young people who go into the military to get a college degree or risk their lives for very, in general, just with the state of the way things are, for little outcome. Some people definitely do stay in for the fact of like, no, I feel like this is my calling, or I'm serving a greater good, which can be argued, you know, depending on your person. But then there are others who are like, I'm getting in so I can go to school, or so I can pay bills. And so it really does turn down to like, some probably are in it for the ranking and the money, and then other people might stay in for the glory of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Well, I think it's important to recognize so that these people are doing work. Like, this stuff fundamentally needs to happen. Like, if this overpowered society comes about, like, there are going to be bad people, someone needs to fight them. Natural disasters happen, someone needs to deal with it. So they're imposing some amount of risk. So, like, fundamentally, like, because of that risk, they should be compensated for that, like, within the bounds of the law.
True. Yeah, and you know, they do get paid. They do get, you know, their attention, their glory. So, yeah, that's true too. I've got one in the back first. Yes.
And so I haven't watched the show, but I'm just going to listen to the discussion. And wouldn't it be also a thing there that how high they go on the rankings would also be about how much they get paid or how well they do?
Yeah, I mean, they do put all of that together.
In a sense, it's sort of like going to the Olympics, and like people, they want to get as many gold medals as possible, and like that helps them get as many promotions and stuff as possible to support their future.
Yes.
Sure. I'm just saying, all y'all talking about rankings really should watch Tiger and Bunny.
I'm just gonna add this in my notes. Like, I'm gonna add this to the panel at one point. Like, yes.
It could all be